The best technique for playing bass is one that uses the least amount of body movement and physical exertion, enabling you to express yourself creatively. By creating too much tension, you won't be able to freely express your musical ideas, especially in the heat of the moment. When we play, we first hear an idea in our head, and then we translate that idea using our body, playing it through the bass guitar. The final part of that neurological pathway is evaluating whether or not the idea that we originally heard came out as we originally intended it to. Feel comes into this as well, but not as you might think, because if your technique is causing too much tension, no matter how hard you try, your feel will be compromised. Now, one of the topics that I'll be covering in my upcoming Bass Foundation course is what are you hearing and what are you feeling when you're playing the bass? It's important to be able to hear the music you're playing as well as making it feel good, right? The way to do this first and foremost is through the development of your technique. Although some will disagree with me, indulge me for a quick hot minute and let me break this down. Contrary to popular belief, 90% of all ear training comes from focused listening during the time that you're practicing scales and arpeggios, along with playing rhythmic, melodic, and harmonic etudes. Many people aren't aware of this because when they attempt to practice these type of exercises, they're shutting down their minds and they're just wiggling their fingers. The same concept applies to making a piece of music flow effortlessly in a relaxed manner where it ends up feeling good. By understanding the principles of good left and right hand technique, body posture, and correct breathing, you'll be less likely to constrict your muscles, which hinders the correct body motion and makes it super hard to move your fingers across the fingerboard. In the last video, I talked about organizing scales into 3- and 4-part blocks. Now, if you haven't checked that out yet, then just click over here and watch that one first before moving on. Today, what I wanted to show you is how to integrate what I showed you in the last video and then apply it to a short piece of music. You'll want to use this approach of writing etudes so that you can use them as delivery systems, helping you to start learning how to incorporate all the elements of building your technique and then being able to transfer those skills into playing your own music. Ultimately, this is the goal. There's a lot of people who practice technical exercises but revert back to poor technique habits the minute they start performing. So before I break down this etude in D major, what I want to do is go back and review the 3-string scale block patterns that I showed you in the last video that covered 2 octaves. So if we go over that and we do it in D major, you can see how this etude is going to transfer to this. So here we did the 1, 2, 3, then we had the 1, 2, 3, 4, then the 1, 2, 3, then the 1, 2, 3, 4. Coming back down, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're back to 1. So if I put that together, it's this. The important thing to get from that as well, and I didn't actually mention this in the last video, is that when you're playing those groups of those different blocks of 3 and 4, is the way that it ends up phrasing is really cool, especially if you're playing like, you know, steady 8th notes or 16th notes or even over triplets. You're going to get this grouping of 3 plus 4, which equals 7. And that's kind of very cool. Listen to that one more time. And that kind of gives it a particular kind of motion that you don't normally get if you just play everything just sort of very statically and you're not really thinking about, you know, how you're organizing it. Or phrasing the actual lines that you play. So you kind of get like, you know, a little bit more bang for your buck by incorporating these scale blocks into just, you know, your garden variety scale exercises up and down. Now, if we take a look at this etude what I've got here is this little piece of music. It's very simple. It's really based entirely on a D major scale, except at the very end, there's a chromatic approach note between the fourth degree and the fifth degree. And that's all there is. So when you see this type of thing, or if you have to read this type of thing, or just learn it, it helps you to organize these things by understanding these blocks. Now, yes, there's different variations of the way you could play and finger this, but this is a beginner's lesson. So this helps you get started, and it also really jump starts a beginner to enable them to traverse across their fretboard with greater confidence because they understand how to organize these scales in these 3-note and 4-note blocks. So if we look at the this etude, this is going to go something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So what I'm going to do is break this etude down into 4 different 2-bar phrases. So the first one is this. I'm going to play this really slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The next phrase starts on the end of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next phrase starts up here at the 12th fret, and that starts right on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last phrase starts down here, and this is probably going to be the most challenging because you have these leaps, these shifts. So this goes like this. Okay, so one of these things is really understanding if you've got this type of tune or etude that you're working through, or if it's part of a solo or whatever the context is that of how to structure this and orchestrate this across the fretboard and know the sort of block points around the tonality that you're working with. So if you look at that one in particular right here, and I've got a shift, so I really need to understand how those things are organized right here as well, like from here to shift up here. And notice that when we had the scale in itself, that was teaching us how to shift from that point. So by the time that you are putting this together in this way, then that becomes a much more approachable thing that you could work on. Now, when you're doing this, you want to be paying attention to all these different things, okay? Technique-wise, like you want to be holding your fingers down. You want to have the proper right hand technique employed. You want to be dampening the notes. You want to make sure that you've got a clean sound. You've got to make sure that the notes are lasting to the full duration. You want your posture to be correct. You want to be breathing correctly while you're playing this. These are all really important things. Now, the thing to remember is that you don't have to focus on everything all at once. Just pick one of these techniques and focus on each one individually. That's the key to the whole thing. This is going to enable you to tackle all the different technical issues that you might be experiencing while you're trying something like this. Okay, now you go try it. What you need to do is to start to integrate all these different elements into what you're playing. It doesn't happen overnight, so try to learn to be a bit patient with this. Ultimately, you want to develop a good technical command of the instrument that will lead to continuous improvement, and that's what my bass foundation course is all about. Now, if you're still a little bit on the fence about joining this new class, then make sure to click on the link in the description box below. There's still some spaces left, but they're moving very fast. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on the other side. Until then, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.